Welcome to This Explainer. Okay, today we are stepping way beyond the dry, dusty pages of rote memorization. Look, if you've been working your way through the fundamentals of ancient Greek, you know that vocabulary lists can, well, sometimes feel like a real chore. But today, we're going to master the vocabulary of Athenaze Chapter 1 Beta by doing something way more exciting. We're actually going to live it. We're going to learn these absolutely essential nouns, verbs, and adjectives through the vibrant, sweat-soaked story of an ancient farmer's daily grind. So, get ready, because we're about to bring these words to life. So, what does it actually take to survive a day's work in ancient Greece? To answer that, you need a lot more than just historical facts. You need the linguistic tools, the exact words that the Greeks used to build and endure their world. The words we're looking at today are literally the building blocks of that ancient agrarian reality. Let's step right into the sandals of our farmer and find out. Section 1. The scene and subjects. The man, the burden, and the time. Okay, before we can get to the action, we need to introduce our core elements and set the scene. First up, we have ho anthropos, the man or the human being. Notice that definite article ho? That lets us know we're talking about a specific masculine noun. Then we have his inescapable burden, actually let's just call it what it is, his nightmare. Ho lithos, the stone. If you've ever heard of a lithograph or the Neolithic age, you already know this word. And finally, the relentless environment he works within is ho chronos, the time. The man, the stone, and the time. These three nouns completely define the physical and temporal boundaries of his toil. Now, an object rarely just exists without description, right? And how we describe this farmer's burden changes the entire story. If he's lifting o mikros lithos, the small stone, well, it might just be a minor annoyance out in the field. But if he is facing o makros lithos, the large or long stone, his day is entirely different. See how just swapping mikros from makros instantly changes the physical weight of our farmer's task? It's a game changer. But here's the crucial point. It's all about how these adjectives shape the human experience. Out there in the Greek countryside, the weather and the landscape might be kalos, beautiful, fine or noble. But the labor itself, it is undeniably halibos, hard, difficult, or troublesome. I mean, you can almost feel the harshness just saying it, halibos. It's the absolute perfect adjective to describe a heavy, burdensome stone that stubbornly refuses to be moved out of the soil. It really highlights the stark difference between a beautiful environment and a grueling, back-breaking task. To actually face that kalapos work, our farmer needs some very specific qualities. He absolutely must be ischiros, strong. Without being ischiros, he simply isn't going to survive those fields. And why? Because his work demands police, much or a lot of, effort and endurance. He needs a strong back to endure the police chronos, the much time spent under that scorching Mediterranean sun. Section 2. Actions of the toil. Setting the scene in motion. So, we've got our strongman and his incredibly heavy stone, but now we need to actually put him into motion. This sequence right here maps out a phenomenal visual story arc, capturing the true rhythm of physical exertion. First, the farmer Badizi, he walks towards his field. Then, as the terrain rises, he steps up or goes up the incline. Once he finally wrestles that stone from the earth, he carries it. And finally, after that immense, draining exertion, he just collapses and kathizi, he sits down. Walk, step up, carry, sit. Just by stringing these four verbs together, you can already envision the exhausting, looping reality of his daily life. Let's take a really quick visual break here. Consider the Pythia, the priestess at Delphi, sitting on the sacred tripod. While our farmer is out there sweating in the dirt, the Pythia is delivering the prophecies of Apollo. Why bring this up? Because the very same language our farmer uses to grunt at a heavy stone is the exact language used to consult the gods. The word for she sits, katizi, applies just as much to this sacred priestess taking her place on the tripod as it does to our exhausted farmer dropping onto a rock in the field. It literally connects the everyday dust to the divine. Pretty cool, right? Section 3. The connecting words, the glue of the Greek sentence. Now let's see how all of this builds into something even more complex with the glue of the sentence. I want you to really feel the weight of these grammatical connectors as we go through them. When the farmer lifts the stone, he does it molis, with great difficulty, barely managing it. He is mala, tired, very tired. But tomorrow, he's going to have to do it althis, all over again. Why? Because, or var, he must feed his family, Allah, but the earth is completely unforgiving. Just listen to how those words, males, mala, althis, add this deep emotional and physical texture, this endless difficult repetition, to the grammar itself. And where is all this intense effort directed? Well, that brings us to our preposition, pros. This is an incredibly versatile little word that indicates direction, to, towards, or even against. It actively directs the struggle. Picture our farmer carrying his stone upwards, pressing his weight pros the hill. He's leaning against the slope, moving towards the boundary wall. It's such a tiny word, but it honestly gives the entire sentence its spatial momentum. Section 4. Expressions of exhaustion, reaching the end of the day. The sun is finally setting, the stones are moved, and it's time to mark the passage of time and some much-needed emotional relief. Consider these expressions of finality. Metatafta means after these things, or simply afterwards. It's the transition away from the hard labor. And then, for sure the sweetest word of the whole day, telos. Finally, or at last, you can almost hear the sigh of relief. After these things, finally, he gets to rest his aching body. And as he drops that very last stone, he looks up at the sky and utters a phrase of pure, unadulterated exhaustion. O Ziph, O Zeus. It is a dramatic, deeply emotional exclamation. It's basically the ancient equivalent of saying, "Oh my God, what a day," which just proves that complaining about work has been a shared human tradition for thousands of years. It makes the language feel so intimately human and incredibly memorable. So we've seen the man, the burden, the actions, the connecting glue, and that final, well-earned sigh of relief. You now hold the exact linguistic tools needed to construct this ancient world from the ground up. So my final question for you today is this. Knowing what you know now, are you ready to conquer the text and translate your very first full ancient Greek story? I honestly think you are. Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer, and I'll catch you in the next one.